Every year around Christmas, I sit down in my journal and try to boil down all my learnings from the year into a few pages. I look at my calendar, scroll through my photos, flick through social media, and read over my journal to capture the best lessons to take forward. This time, I started the process in October, keeping an open few pages in my journal to jot down key sound bites as they landed. Once I consolidate them, I like to write an article and record a podcast to dive deeper, explore concepts further, and close another mini chapter of my life. This year has been different in many ways. I spent 14 weeks getting shredded glutes on a vegan diet, traveled 12 and a half weeks, and experienced the final 22 weeks or so knowing I've got a baby coming. So without further ado, let's dive in. Lesson number 1. It's never too late to work on your relationship with your parents. One of my best friends has an 18-month-old son, and he said something at the start of the year that got me thinking. He said, "We never see our parents as normal people you can get to know. We only see them as mum and dad. When my son grows up, I want him to know the man behind his dad, not just dad." Before I started my photo shoot preparation this year, my dad said he wanted to jump in too. Organically, we started to talk more, and after hearing my friend's sentiment, I thought this was a perfect opportunity to get to know the man behind dad. I've always been closer to my mum, likely because of our shared entrepreneurial passions and similar stoic mentality. So this was the perfect opportunity to match the bond with my dad. So we started meeting up for walks and coffees, and it's become a ritual now that every time Chani is with her parents, my dad will come around. What surprised me is how simple questions about his life growing up led to so many conversations I knew nothing about. On reflection, this has been one of my personal highlights of my year. Number 2, if I'm playful with Chani, I'm in my sweet spot. When you're getting shredded, there's no two ways about it. It's going to be brutal. Beach lean is one thing, getting lines on your glutes is a different ballgame few people like to play. I'm a bit of a masochist, so I like to set it as a benchmark of my conditioning. This year was going to be my 3rd rodeo down into the darkness. And what I learnt this year is as soon as my playful attitude at home disappears, I'm gone. I've crossed the chasm and the only way back is bodyweight regain. You can't cheat it, hack it, or even try and manipulate it. Everyone will be different. I notice for me, as soon as I'm sub 74, 75 kilos, I start getting quiet. When I get to sub 71 kilos, sub 70 even, which I never expected to see, then it's just a straight up anxious dance with the devil. It's all a mind game and a war within. And the playfulness is just sucked out of me. I can't even force it. What I didn't expect though, is you often need to come back higher in body weight to find the play again. For me, it wasn't until I got back into the 77, 78 that I was normal again. I remember the week when Chani said to me, "You're back." It had been 3 months post-shoot. In our RNC Pro platform, we score subjective markers like mood, satiety, libido, hunger, and energy weekly out of 5. And during a team meeting, my colleague Ed said, "You know you're out of consolidation once you score 4s across the board." It all clicked then. That week was my first week in the 4s, and my body weight was finally above 77. Lesson number 3. The last 2 kilos will make and or break you. When another colleague, Ivan, said to me, "I reckon you'll be truly diced at 68, 69. When I hit 71 kilos, I was like, well, here we go. So I dug harder for 2 weeks to get another 2 kilos off, and I still debate whether it was worth it. I remember taking a picture on a Friday night, like, holy crap, I'm in. And that one moment made over 10 years of bodybuilding worth it. I felt like I had the balance I'd always strived for, and I achieved a level of condition I'd always considered impressive in the rare photos I've seen. Something I've not spoken about much was how dark my mood got. On the outside, I kept it together, but when I cancelled my birthday in May, which is usually an annual gathering of my closest friends, I knew I was burnt to a crisp from the prep. I tried to hang on to shredded for longer than I should have, and then didn't gain body weight back quick enough. Looking back, that period of 8 to 12 weeks post-photo shoot was not healthy. I was running on straight adrenaline and anxiety. But I don't have any regrets. I now know what that level feels like. The only thing I wish I could have done was tear up a bodybuilding stage. I think I would have done some serious damage, but the dates didn't align. Lesson number 4. A new lifestyle change will mean learning everything from scratch again. This year I went vegan on January the 1st. After my shoot prep in April, I started traveling often, racking up a total of 12.5 weeks in 36 weeks. For the past few years, I've cultivated a strong lifestyle solution that allows me to stay in good shape no matter where I am year round. Going vegan meant I lost my ability to eat intuitively, a skill where I can look at a plate and guesstimate calories and macros. This went out the window as I started to travel and involved a lot of trial and error, both ways. Sometimes I'd completely undereat without realizing at the time. Other times, I'd end up eating way more because I'd overestimated protein intake. When you've been doing this for a while, the idea of eating a meal without protein is weird. It's the first thing I look for. One of the reasons focusing on protein helps when you're in new environments is satiety and portion control. Protein fills you up. But when you've got minimal on a plate, you can easily start overeating while still feeling empty hours later. I'm getting better, and my recent month away in South Africa was the best yet, as I began to discover intuitive hacks that help on a vegan diet. Lesson number 5. Life under 80 kilos beats life over 80 kilos. Except for my 2014 diet, when I horrifically rebounded, I've noticed a repeating pattern with my body after a diet. It happened in 2017, 2019, and again this year. After I peak, I tend to have a mental wrestle with holding on to my condition for 6 to 8 weeks. I then realize this isn't sustainable, and whilst I may look great, I'm not doing well mentally, or as I alluded to earlier, playful at home. So I gain weight at about 1% a week with a mindset of, is there a new sweet spot I can settle into? I get into my normal sweet spot of 77 to 79 kilos, but then think, maybe I can try higher. As I gain weight, I accumulate sloppy habits and let the pendulum swing a bit further than intended. So I end up in the low 80s. Then around 82, 83, I realize enough is enough. It starts becoming a death by 1,000 cuts where I start justifying poor choices. So I eradicate the poor choices, regain control, and settle into my sweet spot of 77, 79 again. As I record this, I'm a month back under 80, and it feels so much better than low 80s. And not because over 80 kilos is bad. If I have aggressive performance and strength goals, it's required. But my goals are more mental performance and fitness, which is much easier when lighter. I find my habits are better, I'm sharper, more energetic, and I don't start becoming a bigger version of the skinny fat kid I started out at. My conclusion on this is you almost need to go slightly higher before you settle, else you never really know where your sweet spot lies. Lesson number 6. Don't be afraid to become a beginner again. In April, I told the team in a passing comment, I'm going to try boxing this year. After a decade in bodybuilding, I'm happy with where my body is, and I don't have the desire to do what it takes to build a few potential extra pounds of muscle. Whilst having performance goals in the gym during maintenance is good fun, it can become tiresome when you're an advanced trainee. Gains come slow, and the risk-reward ratio every time you're in the gym becomes exponentially higher. So I wanted to explore something different, with boxing or running top contenders. After trying a class in Bali, I then forgot all about it until I was in India in October. I took a week off work, chilled out, which is when I realized I'd done nothing about what I said to the team. Early this year, when I was doing a lot of cardio, I spent a lot of time on the stair climber, which happened to overlook the boxing ring. And I decided then, when the time came, I knew who I wanted to work with. As soon as I got back to London, I contacted Gymbox, my local gym, and asked for my coach's details. The funny thing is, I thought I was signing up to boxing until he started drilling knees, elbows, and kicks for me. I realized I'd signed up to Muay Thai, the art of the 8 limbs. I became instantly hooked, spending the final 8 to 10 weeks of this year reprioritizing my training to become a fit and flexible fighter. That's meant more running, stretching, heavy bag drills, and a ton of pad work. I'm not a nimble guy, and I have no rhythm, so I'm embracing the awkwardness and working on improving daily. And with my type A personality to go all in on anything I do, I booked a flight to Phuket at the end of January to go to the roots of the sport. As my coach says, there's sport and there's combat sport. I'm excited to see where next year takes me with it because I'm loving being a beginner again. Lesson number 7. We all have vices. Caffeine isn't one for me anymore. In September, my mum started raving about the quality of her energy and skin of late. When I asked her what changed, her answer was, I stopped all caffeine. I was instantly interested because my mum and I always experienced similar things with our bodies. She'd been to an Ayurvedic retreat in India during the summer, and according to her body type, fire, caffeine was no good. Looking into this more, I discovered I had the same body type, with a few standouts in my research relating to caffeine, oily foods, and excess working. I'm a fan of validating all I read, so I decided to drop all caffeine the next day. And the first day was absolute hell. I couldn't believe how much I was using my V60 Poro every morning as a way to get back to normal. I stuck with it, and after 30 days of zero coffee, I've since introduced it as a treat once or twice a week when out. But with one caveat, never as soon as I wake up. Lesson number 8, get a work phone. In December 2021, I got to the point where I said to myself, I need to throw my phone in the bin. What I decided instead was to get a new phone contract. I figured everyone in the corporate world has a work phone, so I thought it'd be a good idea. And it's been an absolute game changer. It was getting to the point I was getting WhatsApp messages at all times of the day, and I couldn't switch off when I was with family and friends. So now I have a personal phone with only 10 or so contacts. For years, I had a rule of no phone use until 11 AM, because if I went into my WhatsApp, it was game over. Now I can be a bit more flexible, because I know I'm only ever going to get a WhatsApp from 10 people, and it's impossible for it to be about a fire to put out at work. That said, my rule for no social media before midday continues, and if I'm doing deep work, you won't see me near a phone, personal or not. Lesson number 9. Sometimes the first trigger isn't enough. In the past 12 to 18 months, I've noticed more and more the first trigger that propels you to sign up to a serious program like RNT often isn't enough. Oftentimes you need a second earth-shattering moment to finally take serious action. It's impossible to predict. It can go either way with something like a body transformation, where the level of commitment is high. There's very few things you can cheat in life, and transforming your body is one that falls in this category. After noticing this trend, where people would jolt themselves into action 3, 6, or 12 months after joining, I began to ask around in different industries, and the consensus was similar. During one of my weekly leg sessions with Shyam Kotecha of Escott Visuals, the fitness photography company, he mentioned to me that since COVID-19, more people delay, postpone, or cancel shoots than ever. I thought this was interesting, and it mirrored what we were experiencing, whereby mental health challenges have become more prominent. Overwhelm, stress, and perception of time and busyness is changing rapidly, which perhaps is the real aftermath of the pandemic beginning to show light. Overwhelm, stress, and perception of time and busyness is changing rapidly, which perhaps is the real aftermath of the pandemic beginning to show light, and why the trigger to drive serious action needs to be significant enough. Number 10. AI is going to change the fitness industry. About a year ago, Mark Zuckerberg rebranded Facebook to Meta, and all we heard about was the metaverse, cryptocurrency, and Web3 as the next big things. They may still, and probably will, have a part to play in shaping the future at some stage. But the most interesting tech innovation this year is the mainstream release of ChatGPT. The product, owned by OpenAI, co-founded by Elon Musk, has taken the business world by storm, and for good reason. Before, many of us believed AI would disrupt the more manual labor tasks in the world, and that creative work would be last. What's happening instead is the creative industry is the first at risk, with many roles immediately commoditized overnight. Tasks such as copywriting, graphical artwork, legal contracts, and content creation are now all possible using AI. And having played around with it multiple times, I can vouch for the fact that the quality is strong, which means as it collects more and more data, it's only going to get better. AI is going to force the fitness industry to raise the bar. And the area it will be able to impact the most in the near future is the ability to personalize programming to a level I don't think we've seen yet. In fact, I asked ChatGPT, how will AI impact the fitness industry? Their response? And there's 4 points, which I'll read out to you. There are many ways that artificial intelligence could potentially be used in the fitness industry in the future. Some potential applications include personalized fitness training. AI-powered fitness trainers could analyze an individual's physical abilities, goals, and preferences to create a personalized workout plan. These trainers could also provide real-time feedback and adjust the plan as needed based on the user's progress. Number 2, virtual fitness coaches. AI-powered virtual coaches could provide one-on-one coaching and support to help individuals reach their fitness goals. These coaches could use AI to analyze an individual's workouts and provide feedback and guidance in real time. Number 3, wearables and fitness tracking. AI could be used to analyze data from fitness trackers and smartwatches to provide more accurate and personalized fitness recommendations. And number 4, virtual reality fitness. AI can be used to create an immersive virtual reality fitness experience that allows individuals to work out in a virtual environment. These experiences can be tailored to an individual's fitness levels and goals and can potentially provide more engaging and motivating workout experience. Pretty remarkable, right? The way I see the body transformation industry evolving is AI will replace most, if not all, of the X's and O's coaches do, providing even better recommendations than humans can. What I mean by X's and O's is the technicalities of programming, training, diet, etc. This will come from better and broader data analysis, more factors considered, and utilizing biofeedback to drive the best advice in real time, proactively and reactively. The role of the coach will therefore develop into one entirely focused on the softer skills and the personal touch. Whilst I do believe AI can mimic softer skills, people are still people, and people buy into people and brands. So if coaches have all the X's and O's taken care of by AI, they're able to focus entirely on digging deep into the consumer's lives and facilitating the transformation they want. I can only see this being a win-win for consumers, as they'll get better advice, better recommendations, and better results. I then asked ChatGPT what jobs will be replaced in the fitness industry, to which it answered, "It is difficult to predict exactly which jobs will be replaced by AI in the fitness industry, as it will depend on the specific technologies and applications that are developed and adopted. However, it is likely that AI could potentially replace some tasks and roles that are currently performed by humans. For example, AI could potentially be used to create personalized workout plans for individuals, which could potentially reduce the need for human personal trainers. AI-powered virtual coaches could also potentially provide coaching and support to individuals, potentially reducing the need for human trainers in certain situations. Additionally, the use of AI in the fitness industry could potentially lead to the automation of certain tasks such as data analysis and record keeping. This could potentially lead to the reduction or elimination of certain administrative roles within the industry. It is important to note, however, that the impact of AI on employment in the fitness industry is likely to be complex and will depend on a variety of factors. Whilst AI may potentially replace some tasks and roles, it may also create new job opportunities in areas such as AI development and implementation." The final paragraph is important here. It's a complex topic and it depends on business models, brands, services, and ultimately the results that we're promising. It won't eradicate the need for trainers, far from it, but it'll empower trainers to deliver even better results for their clients. As a company building technology, I'm excited to explore the potential and possibilities of integrating AI in the future so we can deliver even more personalized solutions and free extra capacity for coaches to dive even deeper into our members' lives. Lesson number 11. Building a company with your wife is a special feeling. The biggest game changer within the business this year was bringing Chandy into the fold. I remember when we first started dating, I said to her, "Knowing your skill set and the way you work, you'd be so good in a small, dynamic, fast-growing startup." I never considered at the time she'd once join RNT, but the seed was planted. After quitting corporate life at the start of 2021, Chandy focused the next year on building a women empowerment coaching business, Fearless Females. Watching her grow something from nothing was awesome to see, but one thing I could tell was she wasn't able to operate in her zone of genius. Her profile and style makes her a world-class operator. Being on social media, producing regular content, and being a brand herself wasn't her thing. So in a conversation at the start of the year, we decided to test the idea of her working in RNT. We'd always worried about it for two reasons. The first was the horror stories from couples who tried it and it ended in a disaster, either for the business or their relationship or both. And the second was the perception in the team, being the quote-unquote boss's wife. Both worries were in our heads, and what started as a test, a few hours a week, quickly led to a full-time role where she now lives and breathes the mission. The changes and improvements she's made in the business have been nothing short of game-changing, and she's whipped the business into shape with rapid innovation, improved operations, and better team integration. Her strengths are my weaknesses, and vice versa, so it works well. And the best bit about working together is all our interests are now aligned, which makes it win-win-win for us both, and RNT. That brings us nicely on to lesson number 12. Boundaries are critical to working with your wife. Working together has definitely taken our relationship to the next level, but not without its challenges. And with a baby on the way, We now have 3 conversations at play throughout the day: husband and wife, mum and dad, and business partners. What we learned early on was the need for boundaries. I remember times I'd be laying in bed at 10 p.m. when I'd turn and ask Chani if she sent that email out. Or times when I'd wake up and Chani would hit me with a ton of ideas she's implementing. Being in business together means it can become a melting pot if we're not careful, so establishing boundaries is critical. A few things we do are adding one more element to our weekly check-in, where we have an RNT relationship check-in to reflect on every weekend, creating time and space for business chat and then date nights as a married couple. Third is working in separate rooms. And the last thing is the ability to give warnings if there's too much business chat going on. Most of the time, it's Chani reining me in and telling me how it is. For those of you who don't know about the weekly check-in that we do every Saturday, it involves 5 different elements. The first is appreciations for the week. The second is your to-dos for the week. Third are plans for good times. Fourth are opportunities to improve. And the fifth is the wins for the week. What we've done is, in the opportunities to improve, is added a second section, which is now the RNT relationship check-in. Lesson number 13, empowering team is a life changer. A big part of this year has involved shifting my role from being in the weeds of every area to empowering others and building a back office team to make the business more sustainable. That meant bringing on a sales team for the first time and having a full-time operations manager, which Chani now sits in as. After kissing a few frogs with both, it's taken a fair bit of trial and error to get right, which of course is still early days to know if it is. What this has allowed me to do is focus more on the brand, marketing, and leading the core team. Developing a core team to own and lead each area of the business has been a real eye-opener. Letting go has been one of the hardest things in my entrepreneurial journey, especially with the coaching department, and has likely been a big bottleneck of mine. It's been an area I've struggled to find great leaders in, until this year, where we now have Ed, who leads the coaching team, and Ivan, who mentors them. Building a back office team coincided with the decision to bring on all our full-time UK team as employees. I wanted to do this from a culture, security, and stability perspective, which I know isn't the norm in the fitness industry, and I believe it's had a strong impact on the business so far. Number 14, I've got to start working like a lion. With this change in the business, I've had to shift my default of thinking I have to do all the heavy lifting to now focusing on where I can give my best value to the team. I realized earlier this year I continue to pride myself on my work ethic and use my hours input to validate my output. Whilst I knew in theory I needed to be more on than in the business, I struggled to translate this into my actions. Years of entrenched habits, likely linked to elements of workholism, all came to the forefront after 2 events. The first was finding out we were pregnant. If I look back, my trigger to starting RNT was seeing personal training colleagues on the gym floor turning up bleary-eyed 6 days a week to work and admitting they never saw their kids until Sunday. I knew then I didn't want that for my future family when the time arrived. Chani said to me, "If you can't finish on time without a baby, how do you expect to do so when we have one?" That hit me pretty hard and forced me into changing some of my behaviours. When analysing my days, I realised if I was home and I'd completed my main tasks, I'd start grazing and creating work until dinner time. If I'm bored, I just work and work, and often on low-value tasks and menial things. The hustle is what I've accustomed myself to. This isn't the first time I'm writing about it, but it's the first time I'm doing something about it. Simple things such as weekends off my laptop for the most part, starting at reasonable times, and filling my calendar with other activities, usually training related, has helped a lot. I have a goal to be a present parent in 2023, so I know working on my work addiction is going to be key. The second trigger was on a 1,000-calorie Stairmaster challenge that a friend of mine set me, where you effectively have to burn 1,000 calories on the Stairmaster. Whether it's exactly 1,000 calories or not isn't the point. But I was listening to a podcast whilst doing this by Arthur Brooks, where he was talking about workholism and its comparative effects to cocaine addiction. And he said, nobody bats an eyelid if you work 7 days a week for 16 hours, but if you snort 5 grams of cocaine every weekend, you've got a problem. I'm paraphrasing his exact words, but his point was you can't think clearly and produce your best work if you're always on the grind. With the new business structure in place, I knew I had no real excuse now. And if I didn't change my habits and behaviours, I'd be doing a disservice to the business. This timed perfectly before my month-long stint in South Africa, where I feel I nailed it. I worked hard, played hard, and because every day we had an activity booked in, I focused only on high value tasks. The perfect example of this in action came on safari observing lions. I realized they spent their whole days either resting or finding prey. When they see prey, they'll take their time strategizing how they'll pounce. And when they do, they go hard, get it done, then regroup. After seeing this a few times, I changed my phone's screensaver to be a constant reminder. And last but not least, number 15, the hard bit is not getting it, it's knowing what you want. I had 5 points I was going to tie up this podcast with, but decided to pull them together under this one learning. We live in a world where everything is at our fingertips, and the possibilities are endless. One thing I'm always asking myself is, am I living true to what I really want or not? Not because of any doubt, but because life evolves and new seasons begin. It's like with friendships. The friends you held 10 years ago may or may not still be with you. Not because of any animosity, but because some relationships are for specific times in your life. In the closing quarter of this year, I've spent a lot of time thinking about what I want for my life in 2023 and what success looks like. More and more, I'm beginning to connect to the ethos of success being something I can experience daily. I just have to choose to experience it. But outside of this, it continues to boil down to what I value most in life. An exercise I like to do is think back to recent days where I felt in an elevated state throughout. Depending on the week, this could be almost daily, or it could be 1 to 2 days. When I dissect the day down, it comes back to the fact that I chose to live the day by my design and by my values. I only really have 3 values in my life: RNT, Chani, and my physical health. The claim to the top spot varies across the year, but that's about it. Values are an interesting subject, which I feel have lost their meaning, perhaps because they're thrown around so easily. But your values are a representation of what you prioritize and how you feel with it. If you work 80 hours a week in a corporate job and you love it, then your priorities are aligned with your values. When a disconnect emerges, it was when you start feeling empty inside. For me, I know days when I'm able to be creative and build a brand, I'm training hard, and I'm spending quality time with Chani, I feel ultra successful. The funny thing is, every year I tend to go on this search for, is this what I really want? Then I come back to the same answers. So my lesson and a reminder to myself here to finish this off is to stop searching and start living. So what's next for 2023? With a baby on the way, I know my life from April is going to be different in a way I can't predict. What's interesting about babies is whilst there are so many books and people you can ask, you don't know what you're going to get until it arrives. Every year is an opportunity to write a new chapter of our lives, and my next I'm going to title The Year of the Disciplined Dad. A few reasons. The first is my requirement to discipline my working hours to be present and active at home. The second is the extra need to discipline my focus in the business, given the time and energy challenges raising a baby is bound to have. And the third is the discipline to stay fighting fit year round to potentially compete in a beginner Muay Thai fight. The year starts off with the launch of our companion app, a 2-week training camp in Phuket, and preparation for Chani to go on maternity leave. After April, it's all up for grabs. In closing, I want to thank you for all being a part of this journey. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to growing together in 2023.